Be ready. 5 seconds.
Start. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to be here once again in the historic and holy city of Kathmandu. Since my arrival, I have been overwhelmed by the warmth and affection of the people of this city. I convey my sincere thanks to Honorable Prime Minister of Nepal for according me the honor of this civic reception. The city of Kathmandu has certainly expanded and grown since the days of my previous visits. It is a city famed as much for its majestic Himalayan setting as for the hospitality of its people. Its monuments speak of its grand history, the pride and self confidence of its people, and their resilience in the face of adversity, values which we appreciate immensely in India. India deeply values its historical and traditionally close relations with Nepal. India and Nepal are linked by enduring bonds of history, geography, tradition, and most importantly, strong people to people connections. Kathmandu is not only the political capital of Nepal but also a spiritual center for the people in our region. Thousands of our citizens visit Nepal in search of spiritual solace at the holy temples. Similarly, people from Nepal visit Varanasi in the north and Rameswaram in the south in search of spiritual inspiration. My visit to Nepal is also a kind of pilgrimage. It is a mission of friendship to foster ever greater understanding and cooperation between our two countries. There are no two sovereign nations in the world like India and Nepal, sharing a common culture and having an open border between them. The government and people of India are committed to further strengthening and deepening this relationship. India fondly remembers the support that her freedom fighters received from the leaders and people of Nepal during our struggle against foreign rule. Today, as Nepal is engaged in consolidating the gains of democracy, empowering its citizens, and pursuing the goals of peace and development, India is happy to support Nepal's efforts. We wish the people and the government of Nepal every success in the important task of implementing its constitution, taking on board all the sections of its society. As two developing economies, we have a shared vision of economic prosperity and sustained development for our respective nations and also our region. As a neighbor and close friend, India has an abiding interest in seeing sustained economic development in Nepal. Our development partnership covers a broad canvas of projects in both countries. The government of India has taken some new initiatives in economic policies and has been emphasizing innovation, research, and technological development to accelerate India's social and economic transformation. These policies are aimed at raising India's agricultural productivity, promoting manufacturing for employment generation, and boosting the services industry. India and Israel can work together in each of these areas. Agriculture is the mainstay of the Indian economy. In this vital sector, our government's policy has been to grow more crop per drop. Our farmers face the challenges of uneven distribution of water. We often have floods in one part of the country while there is drought in another. Our scientists should collaborate to deal with these challenges. We also seek assistance to clean our rivers, particularly the holy Ganga. To stimulate our domestic manufacturing sector, Government of India has launched an ambitious Make in India campaign. Israeli innovation and technology can combine with Indian engineering and skill to manufacture in India. Such a partnership, particularly in the defense sector, has the potential of creating new markets and generating more jobs both in India and Israel. In both our countries, the service sector is growing fast. This is another area where we have complementary strengths. India is one of the largest exporters of software in the world. Every year, more than 4 lakh English speaking engineers graduate from Indian universities. The number of startups in India is expected to cross 10,000 in the next 2 years. I am happy that the Israeli government has opened a consulate in Bangalore, India's Silicon Plateau. As visitor of 114 institutions of higher learning in India, I have personally placed a great deal of emphasis on developing educational linkages between Indian institutions and universities abroad. India produces first-rate managers and engineers who are highly regarded by global companies. The current CEOs of both Microsoft and Google are graduates of Indian engineering colleges. In the coming decade, the emphasis in our educational institutions will be to strengthen innovation and research. A delegation of vice chancellors of Indian universities and scientific institutions in accompanying me on this visit. I am confident that their contacts with Israeli counterparts will result in a variety of partnership in a range of areas from space and cyber security to the building of smart cities. Ladies and gentlemen, India is delighted that Israeli citizens, particularly the younger generation, enjoy traveling to India. They rightly see India as a safe and welcoming destination where they always feel at home. The Jewish community in India has always been an integral part of India's social, economic, and cultural site. Recently, local authorities have renovated the holy places. As far as the first postponement of Punjab election is concerned, according to the commission, it is on the basis of the recommendation of the Honorable Minister. So the Honorable Member who was then in the Home Ministry should have known that it was postponed at the instance of the Home Ministry. These 3 postponements and also the other reasons should be taken into consideration when we think of electoral reforms. In this election, one factor which has come out prominently is booth capturing, lawlessness, and the ballot papers being taken away. These things must be seriously considered. Sir, the government from the very beginning has been thinking of electoral reforms and has also done so many things. A number of committees have been appointed. Recently, the previous government also appointed a committee, and it was a unanimous decision. Depending upon this, some bills were introduced to amend the Constitution and the Representation of the People Act. All the bill were moved by one minister who is not present here, unfortunately, for the amendment of the Constitution and the Representation of People Act. Two have been passed, but the other three bills are pending before the House. Sir, we want to pursue those bills, but not immediately. We must get the report of the elections from the states and also the election commission.